Coming up, a traditional Wampanoag clam bake shines a light on an underlying cultural rejuvenation. Plus, Indigeneity in Hollywood. We speak to a Diné filmmaker and activist on Native representation in the new films Barbie and Oppenheimer. And giving baby a healthy start. It is Indigenous Milk Medicine Week. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start today in Arizona, where Indigenous leaders are celebrating newly established federal protections for their sacred land. It is located in 3 regions near the Grand Canyon National Park. Take a look. Surrounded by tribal leaders and federal policymakers, President Joe Biden signed a proclamation last week creating the country's newest national monument. It is called Baj Navajo Itka Kukveni, Ancestral Footprints of the Grand Canyon. Biden was introduced by a Hopi and Havasupai high school student.
Baje, Nyasivyo, Maya Tulusi Little Exijke. I'm here representing the next generation that has the responsibility to continue this vital work.
The event backdrop featured this sign, written in Indigenous languages. Baj Navajo means where Indigenous peoples roam in the Havasupai language, and Ita Kukvini means ancestral footprints in the Hopi language. The Biden administration says the name reflects the significance of the area, not to just one, but many tribal nations.
From time immemorial, more than a dozen tribal nations have lived, gathered, prayed on these lands. But some 100 years ago, they were forced out.
The national monument, created under the Antiquities Act, is set to conserve nearly 1 million acres of public land surrounding the Grand Canyon. It contains over 3,000 known cultural and historical sites. To the tribal nations who hold this area with significance, it came as a huge sigh of relief after many were concerned about new uranium development in the area.
I made a commitment as president to prioritize respect for the tribal sovereignty and self-determination, to honor the solemn promises the United States made to tribal nations to fulfill federal trust and treaty obligations.
The new national monument only protects federal lands and does not include state and private lands within its boundaries. In Phoenix, Arizona, Aaliyah Chavez, ICT News. In Illinois, State Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed 3 bills into law designed to protect Indigenous people. House Bill 3413 establishes procedures for encountering human remains or grave sites and returning the remains to Native American nations. Illinois is believed to currently have the second largest collection of unrepatriated remains in the United States. Violators of this law will be required to pay restitution, which is set to be held in a restoration fund. Another bill, Senate Bill 1446, prohibits banning students from wearing traditional regalia as graduation attire. It protects not only cultural attire, but anything that is associated with the student's protected characteristic as described in the Illinois Rights Act. The governor said in a statement, "Today, we take another step forward in repairing generations of harm and building a brighter future for our state's Native American and Indigenous people." Governor Pritzker also signed House Bill 1633, mandating the teaching of Indigenous history, including genocide, to students in every public school in Illinois. Beginning in 2024, all K-12 students from elementary to high school will be required to learn about Native American history. A key part of this legislation includes an adapted curriculum to teach about Native contributions to the arts, sciences, and modern way of life. Older students will dive deeper into the genocide and discrimination historically endured by Native Americans, with an emphasis on teaching self-determination and sovereignty. To oversee the mandate, the bill creates a Native American Curriculum Advisory Council and a Native American Curriculum Task Force to ensure proper historical inclusion. Despite the state not having any federally recognized land, the city of Chicago has one of the largest urban Native populations in the country, with over 175 tribes represented. With a small number of Native Americans attending college in Illinois, officials hope the increased representation will support and encourage more students to pursue higher education. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. We turn now to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the home of the Mashpee Wampanoag. The tribe embarked on some major cultural and economic rejuvenation projects, but only after turning back the latest challenges to their homelands. ICT's Stuart Huntington has this report.
The Mashpee Wampanoag are no strangers to resistance and resilience. The citizens of the coastal tribe have, after all, been fighting for their land and lifeways since before the Pilgrims landed at nearby Plymouth Rock. They fought in the 1970s to finally win federal recognition as a tribe, and they fought all the way into this year when a federal court threw out the final challenge to their reservation boundaries and tribal status. The win allowed tribal leaders to exhale a bit and turn to rejuvenation efforts, like the weeks-long Preserve Our Homelands camp for youth, or the pre-contact home site under construction under the guidance of tribal citizen Talia Landry.
Our land and trust status has been reaffirmed, so it hasn't been as difficult to try and get things built or to do things on our own land, because our focus was on fighting for that land. And so with the leaders and legislation kind of focused on that, it's hard to get little projects, or even, this is a big project, a huge project like this done.
A summer Witu that would have been home to a single family is fully framed. The garden is in with the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, happily at home together. Reeds for Witu mats dry in a barn.
This project is a pre-contact traditional Wampanoag home site, or village site, I should say, because it includes multiple home sites within the village. And the essence of it is an interactive museum that you go through the seasons and you see how our ancestors would live pre-contact, 1700s, of how our traditional homes were, our activities that we would do. So there's like a, fishing area, like tanning area, just even recreation.
But it's not just homes, said cultural advisor Chanulke Poknet.
We're putting a whole footprint in of a whole home site, winter and summer, with connecting trails and signage and informative plants and herbs that we have native to here, so that we have more awareness of our native plants and medicines within our community and outside of our community for people who come in to learn.
All of it built with the help of Wampanoag youth.
That means,
like Isaiah Peters, who said it was exciting.
It's a really good thing to do, because it introduces our culture and the ways that our people thought, and kind of ties them together with modern things. When you look at some of the things that we do, we burn the ends of the poles so that they don't rot.
Amaya Balbuena shared the sentiment.
It was honestly just a really amazing experience to be a part of that, saying oh, I did that to the Witu, I peeled that bark with my own hands. It's definitely connecting with the people that made Witus before us, our ancestors that did it. We give thanks to the trees for the life of giving it to ours, and making it so we can have what we too. It's definitely like connecting to me to my ancestors, my papa personally, because
they need to be exposed to this so they feel the way that they're supposed to feel. They feel Wampanoag and they have that self-identity and they have that confidence to keep moving forward and not keep thinking there's nothing to do here, or I have no purpose here.
Over by the tribal offices, a celebratory clambake was underway to mark the last day of the Restore Our Homelands youth camp. Tribal Chairman Brian Whedon praised the effort.
It's important for us to teach our young people their culture and their traditions, because at one point in time it was outlawed. It was forbidden for you to grow out your hair, it was forbidden for you to speak your language. They were sending some of our children to the Carlisle Indian School to assimilate, the Native Americans and take the savage out of them, so to speak. And we're happy to say that we've reclaimed our language, and every day we're learning and reinventing some ceremonies and cultural aspects to make sure that we carry on the traditions for future generations while creating new traditions as well.
Camp leaders like Tribal Natural Resources Director Jason Steiding said the camp's goals are far-reaching.
We really try to hammer home the fact that it is a privilege and a right to be Master Wampanoag, and what comes with that right, what comes with those privileges. And so a lot of that we've been trying to instill in them, but we've also let them know that there's a sense of urgency in this community. The waters are dying, the water quality is horrible.
We're coastal people, we're water people, and this river that we're sitting by right now is contaminated. You can't drink out of it, you can't even swim in it, you can't eat any plants that come out of it.
It's not just our responsibility to take care of each other, but to take care of Mother Earth. And right now, with everything going on in the world, I think it's safe to say that, nobody's really taking care of Mother Earth like she should be taken care of, or else we wouldn't have global warming and all these other issues that we have today.
In Mashpee, Massachusetts, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
In the new films Barbie and Oppenheimer, many Indigenous viewers took to social media to voice their concerns about the lack of representation or misrepresentation within the popular movies. So what role does Hollywood play in portraying Indigenous representation accurately? In the first interview of a two-part series, ICT's Mackenzie Allen Charnley spoke with Diné filmmaker, artist, and activist Clee Benally on entertainment, media, and Indian country. Let's take a look.
Well, Clee Benally, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about indigeneity within the entertainment industry. With the recent buzz around the two new films, Barbie and Oppenheimer, many viewers are speaking up about the racist elements surrounding Indigenous narratives that exist within both of the films. As an Indigenous artist, filmmaker, and advocate yourself, what is your take on the films?
I've been a media justice advocate for over 20 years now. So media justice really is a powerful tool for us to understand critically how storytelling, how narratives impact, how they shape our identities, and the power, the underlying power relationships that they reinforce or that they deepen. And so to respond to that question first is to address the fact that we have ongoing challenges with Indigenous people in representation, particularly in pop cultural mass media. We can look at the history and look at why we're here today. And what really concerns me is that we've fought hard as Indigenous people against dehumanizing narratives that have degraded and facilitated ongoing colonial violence against our people. You cannot easily oppress or degrade or commit violence against people if you have not dehumanized them, if you have not portrayed them as being less than. And so these narrative dimensions of power are what concern me beyond Oppenheimer, beyond Barbie, but overall with the media that we are subject to, that we consume, as people say. And this is a critical, aspect of the environments that we are subject to, the archives that inform dominant cultures' understanding of our dominant society's understanding of who Indigenous people are. which also impacts how we view ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And most importantly, what ways that we are dehumanized. And this applies to, any kind of negative portrayal, like mascotry of Indigenous people, or just, the sort of like what appears to be casual co-optation or appropriation. The underlying aspect is it's tied to a context of violence against Indigenous people that we can just be taken from without consent. Our bodies, our knowledge, our spirit, and our land and waters, and they can be violated. So the idea is essentially that when people are degraded and so dehumanized, that that paves way for other forms of violence against our bodies or against our lands and waters.
Within popular mainstream movies like Barbie and Oppenheimer, what level of accountability or responsibility do you feel Hollywood has or should have when it comes to producing films around Indigenous narratives?
Well, I'll start by saying I don't believe justice for Indigenous people is going to come at the ballot box. The ballot box, the box office. I also, as an Indigenous anarchist, I don't believe it's going to be coming from the ballot box either. And I'll back that up by saying, there is power in storytelling. Storycraft has the ability to influence how people behave, how they view history, how they view themselves, and most importantly, how they view and treat others, as I mentioned. The power of pop cultural mass media is with narrative environments and archives that it constructs that inform the social consciousness about how people are perceived, how people really are perceived, and how they perceive themselves directly influences how people are treated, as I alluded to earlier. So if the narrative is empowering, people will be uplifted. If the narrative teaches that people are less than, or they're just totally erased and left out of the picture, then the consequences in its worst forms is that they are also deserving of violence, that they don't exist, that were written out of existence. And so expressions of pop cultural mass media are comprised of these underlying narrative assumptions that shape our identities and directly shape how others treat us through the normalized degradation of groups of people or dehumanization. Violence against those peoples and the lands and the waters that they care about becomes permissible. As it further informs historical narratives, it also becomes institutionalized. And I'll get to the point of answering your question a little bit, but I just want to sort of construct this analysis first. So we have to contend with the institutionalization that is embodied within, institutions like Hollywood as well. So we can call this process, and I think it's important to name it, as a narrative form of colonialism or narrative colonialism. Popular culture becomes cultural imperialism when coercive and dominant forces that comprise their cultural hegemony use their narratives to legitimize the imposition of their systems of power over others. And this, coercive manipulation is also in what and who is left out. So media informs our relationships of power, and in dynamics of colonial occupation, dominant modes of media tend to to support and reinforce narratives that justify and legitimize occupation. So as I mentioned, justice won't come at the box office, and perhaps some cathartic feeling as an approximation of justice could, like if we had a wildly successful narrative and people denounced the portrayal of Indigenous people or the lack thereof in these films. Maybe we had a blockbuster Indigenous film that reinforced positive aspects and empowerment of Indigenous people, but maybe that would give us a reference point and make a lot of people money. But the underlying power relationships, if they haven't changed, and the exploitation, domination, and control persists that comprises the institutionalization and commodification of Indigenous identity, then we really can't call that justice. For me, it would amount to like a play at a prison acted out by prisoners. So we have to ask ourselves, what is it going to take for us to make a jailbreak from these colonial and capitalist constraints, especially when, and we talk about accountability, studio execs only care about their bottom line, their profits. So unless they're confronted and challenged, and we dig deeper and look at the root causes of the commodification and exploitation of Indigenous identity, if we look at the erasure of Indigenous existence, and we also stop playing into these industries and instead empower Indigenous narratives with culturally rooted media practices, I think we can establish accountability on our terms. One, by checking and addressing these problematic practices, but two, by empowering our systems of media expression that are culturally informed, that empower our cultural ways of sharing knowledge, because we are ultimately storytellers. And to me, this means fighting colonial narratives, means resisting this cultural imperialism, and that's something that the movie, television, and other media industries aren't going to do because it's really what they're built upon.
As Native people, we honor the traditions of our ancestors, and we believe that children are sacred gifts. August is National Breastfeeding Month, and today we learn about Indigenous Milk Medicine Week. Shoshana Kraft is Director of Programs for the Division of Indian Work in Minnesota. Welcome, Shoshana.
Thank you. Bonjour.
What are the goals of Milk Medicine Week?
The goals of Milk Medicine Week are to empower and educate families who are on their breastfeeding journey.
And tell us why this work is so important.
Oh my goodness. This work is so important because we have many families that have had gaps, generational gaps in breastfeeding, and learning about their traditions and cultures with their specific tradition cultures. Like with us here in the Minneapolis area, we have a lot of families that have not breastfed for at least 2 generations.
And tell us actually some of the benefits to breastfeeding.
There are many well-documented benefits to breastfeeding. For the infants, it will help reduce the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, ear infections, type 1 diabetes, obesity, and asthma. And for the mothers, it will help prevent, it will lower the risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, ovarian, and breast cancer.
Tell us about some of the obstacles that new mothers face when they want to breastfeed and maybe aren't finding that it's as easy as they thought it was going to be.
There are many obstacles that mothers have to jump hurdles over. First of all, they need the education, and education should start prenatally while baby is still in the womb. And then when they go to the hospital, they need to know that they are able to advocate for themselves, to be able to connect to an IBCLC, which is that top tier of the lactation consultants. And then when they give birth in the hospital, so much information is passed on to mother that it's really hard to retain all the information that's given to them. It's just so overwhelming. And then they should be able to ask for extra support. There's that support, that generational support they should be getting from their families, which they might not have. But there are Indigenous doulas out there in the community. There are lactation counselors within the community, including Indigenous lactation counselors, people like ourselves to support the families.
Actually, tell us and give our viewers some tips on how family members can support the new mother who is breastfeeding.
Sure. To be very supportive, you need to kind of identify prior to birth to mentally prepare yourself that this is something that is really beneficial for babies. Encourage them, bring them a sip of water, bring extra good nutritious calories to their to their mothers, and just being for them, sharing those songs that that they may have learned within their family, those songs that to help promote mother and baby to form that special bond.
And once a mother is, of course, feeding her baby, tell us how long she should be, breastfeeding.
There isn't a necessarily specified time. I believe with the American Pediatric Association, they say for 6 months. For the World Health Association, I believe they say at least 2 years. Whatever, each individual has their own plan, mentally prepared. It's really good to at least the very, very minimum to introduce that colostrum to that baby. That colostrum helps seals the baby's gut because it's not fully sealed when baby is born. So that colostrum will help seal baby's gut in order to prevent like indigestion and several other things. But we try to support our families here for as long as we can. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've had a mother breastfeed for 5 years.
Wow, what a success story there. Well, Shoshana Kraft, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.